Hey there folks, Coordinates V2 here. Welcome to the fourth part of my assembly tutorial. In this part, we will be going over some similar commands to those that we've already covered. We'll be revisiting the stack, including stack commands and programmer uses of the stack, multiplication and division, which has multiple ways of being able to achieve that, and then the rest of the commands that don't really have a good fit, at least not that I'm aware of right now. There are a number of commands in assembly that share very similar functions. Their primary difference is which register they work on. For example, we've used LDA to load a number into the accumulator. Similar commands are LDX, load into X, and LDY, load into Y. Here is a table showing some of those. Well, the rest of those, actually. As you can see, many of the commands support working on the accumulator X or Y register. And in the case of increment and decrement, you operate either directly on a memory address, the X or Y register. The following commands deal specifically with the stack. The stack is a 256-byte block of memory starting at address or hex 0100 or 0100, not 0100. When you jump to a subroutine or return from a subroutine, you're pushing, placing the value of, or pulling, retrieving the value of, the program counter to the stack. Those commands are TSX, transfer stack pointer value to X, TXS, transfer X value to stack pointer, PHA, push from accumulator to stack, PLA, pull from stack to accumulator, PHP, push processor flags to stack, and PLP, pull processor flags from stack. Until you're much more comfortable with assembly code, it is strongly advised that you do not use TXS and TSX. Changing the value of the stack pointer could have unintended effects if you don't know precisely what you're doing. The two sets of push and pull commands are extremely useful for volatile's temporary storage, as long as you remember to remove any values you place. PHA and PLA could be used to temporarily store the value of the accumulator for operations. For example, you could push the accumulator to the stack, perform some operation on the accumulator, then pull the value from the stack, which would return the accumulator to the state it was in before you perform the operation. PHP and PLP could be used if you need to temporarily hold the processor flags and restore them later. Multiplication and division on the 6502 processor can range wildly in difficulty from extremely simple to quite complex. As the processor doesn't have any particular multiplication or division commands, we have to use binary operations to do the task, or if you don't mind spending space on it, various algorithms. The simple way. If you need to multiply or divide a number by a power of 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, etc., the simplest way to do that is through a binary shift. For example, let's take the number 5. We want to multiply that number by 4. The solution for this is to shift the binary number to the left 2 times. Division works the same way, only instead of shifting left, we shift right. Dividing 232 by 8 is a shift right 3 times. Multiplication is done with the ASL, arithmetic shift left command, which can be run on either the accumulator or a memory location. Carry will be set to the value pushed out by the shift, bit 7. Division is done with the LSR, logical shift right command, which can also be run on either the accumulator or a memory location. Carry will be set to the number pushed out by the shift, bit 0. There are multiple solutions out there for multiplication of numbers that aren't powers of 2, but the simplest way to do it is also the slowest: repeated addition. The below code takes 2 cycles of setup and 12 cycles per multiplication, at least if my estimations are correct. I can't guarantee that, but I ran this through an assembler and did the executions, and that's the best I could come up with for how fast they are. For this code example, let's assume the number we want to multiply is in the memory location temp, and the number we want to multiply by is in the X register. At the end of the code, the final multiplied value will be stored in the accumulator. It's important to note, though, that this code will only multiply up to 255, at which point the accumulator will overflow back to and past 0. As said before, there are multiple ways to handle multiplication and division. One source of possible code on this topic is the NESDev wiki. Unfortunately, I'm not that familiar with binary multiplication or division, otherwise I'd go over a few of those blocks of code. But once you feel comfortable with assembly, you might look at the code in these 2 pages. The links will be provided in the slide, which are in the presentation, which will be below the video in the description. There are 2 other commands for shifting bits: rotate left and rotate right. These work by shifting bits in the respective direction, pulling the value of the carry flag into the newly opened position before storing the current value into carry. There are a few commands that I didn't have a good place to put, or a good example to give. The following slides will go over those commands and their syntax. The bit test command. The value stored in the accumulator is non-destructively ANDed with the location in memory, and the last 2 bits of the memory value are stored in the overflow, bit 6, and negative, bit 7 flags. The 0 flag is set if the result of the AND is 0. The following commands don't have good examples to give, so they'll be covered in brief. Break is used for debugging, causes the program to pause execution. When you're running in an emulator, this will actually pause the emulation. When you're running on hardware, it's best to have these commented out because I'm honestly not sure what they actually do for that. CLV clears the overflow flag. And NOP, no operation, spends 2 cycles doing nothing. This is useful for timing. Like if you need something specifically timed, you can use no operation to have the processor wait. Though while it's doing that, it's obviously not taking care of any other processes in your code. There are a few more commands that I haven't covered, but they all involve interrupts, which NESMaker and the GG Sound Engine already make heavy use of. These commands, which will not be covered in future tutorials, are the set interrupt disable, clear interrupt disable, and return from interrupt commands. Anything someone just learning assembly could hope to do with the non-maskable interrupt NMI would likely break the entire engine. If you know how to work with interrupts, you're skilled enough already that these tutorials will likely be of little help to you. And for the final basic challenge, for this challenge, you will receive random numbers in the base damage variable and player flags variable. If the 3rd bit in player flags is set damage to base damage divided by 2. If base damage is odd, add 1 to the result of the division to round the number up. If the third bit in player flags is not set, simply store base damage in the damage variable. The challenge will utilize information from all 3 of the ASM basic tutorials that I've done thus far: branching, conditions and binary operations, and simple division. As a small hint, checking to see if a number is odd is quite simple. Think with binary numbers. The next episode, we will actually be getting into NESMaker. As it stands right now, as of November 2nd, 2018, NESMaker 4.1.0 has not been released yet, but as soon as it is, I will begin work on my next tutorials. 4.1.0 is expected to change quite a bit of the underlying code, and it's not smart to teach you guys something only to have to make another tutorial saying, wait a second, we need to go over this again, it's changed, sorry. Anyway, that's it for now. This is Kronos V2 signing off. Have a great day.